Hello everyone, it's Saturday. It's nice and quiet. I love Saturdays because I don't have the crèche operating. Another great incentive to basically look for a place down at Trinity Beach or elsewhere on the coastline. But alas, there ain't no new properties anyway, up for grabs. So it's going to be a long search. Also, my team Richmond won against Port Adelaide yesterday in a thrilling finish. Unfortunately, I got to see the first two quarters, that was fine, but then the Jameson Irish whiskey kicked in and I fell asleep, and I woke up for the ads just after the thrilling finish, where I think they only won by a couple of points. So that was rather poorly planned and timed, and maybe when a big game's on, I should hold back on the alcohol intake, especially considering my sleep hadn't been great the previous day. So there's something to be learnt. Old dog, new tricks. Well, we'll see. Hopefully, I can still learn from my mistakes at 65 and evolve. Maybe I'm just a lost cause. But anyway, we'll get on with the news. I'm doing something slightly different today. I'm doing a contrast between two countries. On a similar project and a similar debacle, and yes, it does revolve around Daniel Andrews, and the latest story is actually regarding the fallout from these shutdowns and how it's affecting business, specifically shopping malls, and specifically in this case down in Frankston, which is right down the southern part of Melbourne on the eastern side. Frankston's had a lot of problems over the past few years with juvenile crime and what have you. It's a bit of a mixed bag depending which part of Frankston you're in. There are some nice parts and there's some pretty cruddy parts. So anyway, that's the background to Frankston. Now I'll get on to the actual story. The harsh reality of Victoria's shutdown. Tour of shopping centre reveals the extent of the damage caused by Daniel Andrews' lockdown, with the majority of stores closed and the state losing $6.5 billion. Trish Laban visited shopping centre at Frankston, Melbourne on Wednesday. She filmed her trip and captured an eerily quiet and deserted shopping centre. Most shops have been shuttered up with notices taped on their entrances. It's just a surreal experience to come shopping now, Miss Laban said in the video. A video of the deserted shopping centre has captured the financial hardship faced by thousands of Victorian businesses as they struggle to stay afloat amid tough restrictions. Trish Laban visited the eerily quiet and empty centre at Carrangal in Frankston, Melbourne on Wednesday. Trish Laban visited the eerily quiet and empty centre at Carrangal in Frankston, Melbourne on Wednesday. Frankston is just one of the many suburbs that are currently trapped in stage 4 lockdown, with local businesses forced to close their doors. Footage showed a nearly deserted Carrangal centre with most of the lights turned off, with staffers left with little reason to turn them back on. Shuttered after shuttered store hide the darkness with notices taped in the front entrances. This used to be the tax lotto. That's completely shut down now, Miss Laban said. This was Rockman's, they're closed down. This was Miller's, they're closed down. A lone shopper sits on the ground of the now emptied hub in the shopping centre. Only a Gloria Jeans, Woolworths and Bank appear to be open. And I guess supermarkets are really anchor tenants, and that's the only reason they'd be keeping the centre open at all, I'd say. If the supermarket goes, that'd be it. Finito. Other than groceries and pharmacy, I've had to switch to online shopping with deliveries and click and collect, and the deliveries are a bit hit and miss, she said. Yeah, and also I don't know what time frame they are. I've been contemplating that myself from time to time, but how long do they actually take to deliver the goods? And, you know, I'd like to personally shop if I can. Ms. Laban posted the video to YouTube where shoppers commented it was a similar experience in regional Victoria, which is currently locked in stage 3 restrictions. It is very surreal for those out in Melbourne, one person said. In regional Victoria, had enough down here. I hope that businesses that have been shut are able to reopen. The video was released following revelations of the devastating impact of COVID-19 and lockdown on the state. A 6.5 billion deficit was reported for the 2019 to 2020 financial year. A 4 billion underspend was also announced on infrastructure, with state revenue plunged by 1.3 billion. Well, I think it's only going to get worse, unfortunately. Treasurer Tim Pallas has warned the rate of unemployment will only get worse, especially if you, Tim, and your band of merry Labor boys are in control. I'd say that's for sure. I think we've still got a month or two to go, but I'm reasonably confident that we'll see how other states have responded to this, a reasonably confident rebound. Melburnians are currently waiting on tenterhooks to see which of the hated stage 4 restrictions will be lifted tomorrow after weeks of single or low double-digit infections. Yeah, there was no deaths today, and I think there was very few infections. So it's absurd the amount of suffering the Victorians have had to endure, especially considering, as I've showed you previously, New South Wales and Victoria pretty well now have identical rates of infection, but are run in totally different ways. Funnily enough, Berejiklian is a Liberal Premier. She's pretty bloody left actually when it comes to social policies, but she is much more small L Liberal when it comes to the economy, and is allowing business to actually have a go, as opposed to the doctrinaire hard left Labor in Victoria. You can see the contrast pretty clearly. On Friday, the state recorded just 2 new corona cases, its lowest number since June the 9th. But Premier Daniel Andrews has admitted it was unlikely big steps would be taken out of lockdown, as the state's second wave of COVID-19 was proving to be stubborn. The only thing that's damn stubborn is people like you, Daniel Andrews, and also Scott Morrison. There's some very stubborn politicians in this country. Oh, don't forget Anastasia Palaszczuk. She's stubborn and stupid. So she's got the Quinella. Congratulations, Anastasia. Not that you understand the award if I gave it to you. Speaking on Friday, he alluded to the easing of social restrictions instead of economic ones. And isn't that Labor in spades? They are always looking at the social easing, but they hate allowing business to have free rein and to actually grow and prosper. It's so amazing, the contrast. And Victorians just seem to want it that way. They seem to want their state to be poorer and less dynamic economically. It's just insane. Well, I'm going to do something totally different here. The next story will be the final story because it's quite a long one. So I hope you bear with me. But I think it's quite interesting to illustrate the demise of one shopping mall compared to another. And I've already given you the outline of what's happened in Frankston. More dramatically, now I have a story about what happened in Venezuela to a shopping mall that actually never was used for its intended purposes, as it turned out. So on to this particular story, just to provide a bit of contrast. And when you consider that we're talking about 2 left-wing regimes, and I'd say that Daniel Andrews is the most left-wing regime we've ever had in Australia, this might be a bit of a warning to all the people in Victoria. If they don't turn this around, their state could be doomed. Although I'd say being in the Anglosphere seems to be a bit of an antidote to this particular socialism disease. It's something that seems to be more embraced in places like Latin America. It doesn't seem to be a thing in the Anglosphere. So I think there is hope for Victorians. But if it doesn't go that way, and if Daniel Andrews holds power and he becomes more doctrinaire, this could be a future. So just listen in. Downward spiral, how Venezuela's symbol of progress became political prisoner hell. El Helicoide, I hope I got that right, I probably totally made a hash of it, surrounded by the slums of Caracas, has become a symbol of national decay, bankrupt dreams and faltering democracy. The dizzying spiral structure in central Caracas was conceived in the 1950s as a monument to the nation's confidence, but now its crumbling shell houses a notorious political prison. Is El Helicoide a metaphor for modern Venezuela? And get this, this actual article is from The Guardian, the last place you'd expect me to get an article. And it's actually critical of a left-wing regime, which is even more extraordinary because The Guardian is by far the most left-wing newspaper that I know of in the UK anyway. Spiring up a hill in the heart of Caracas is a playful, ambitious building that once embodied Venezuela's dreams of modernity, power and influence, and was fated by Salvador Dali and Pablo Neruda. Today, its crumbling concrete shell houses the headquarters of Venezuela's intelligence services and the country's most notorious political prison. It has become a symbol of national decay, bankrupt dreams and faltering democracy. Slums on the surrounding slopes obscure the ageing Buckminster Fuller dome that tops its elegant coils, but the building can still be seen from around the capital and casts a long shadow of fear. El Helicoide, as it was named in a nod to the geometry that inspired it, was conceived in the early 1950s as a shopping mall that would embody Venezuela's wealth and confidence. Its curving lines are created by more than 2 miles of ramps in an interlocking helix designed as a modern take on the high street. The design included space for 300 boutiques and car parking spaces for each. There were also plans for a hotel and galleries, but the building was never finished and the shops never opened. Instead, areas earmarked for the sale of luxury goods were turned first into shelters for the homeless, then prison cells, police headquarters, and eventually even torture chambers, described by former inmates as hell on earth. Yeah, I can believe it. Several Venezuelan governments tried to make El Helicoide a museum or cultural centre, but all efforts ended in failure. Its cells have never been as crowded as they are today. After months of street protests against the government of Nicolás Maduro, that often turned violent, support for his government has collapsed in the face of severe shortages of food and medicine, hyperinflation and spiralling violence. The president blames foreign sabotage for the country's problems. Oh yeah, I suppose it's just like Daniel Andrews probably blames Canberra for his woes. Even though Venezuela sits on the world's largest oil reserves and has responded to the unrest by jailing and blacklisting opponents, convening a legislative super assembly to sideline the opposition-controlled parliament, and even openly flirting with becoming a dictator to guarantee prices for the people, Celeste Quiango, again, no doubt I've made a total hash of that, a cultural historian who grew up in Caracas, said, El Helicoide is a metaphor for the whole modern period in Venezuela and what went wrong. She launched a project to document its extraordinary history and a book about the mall turned jail. The transformation from icon of Venezuela as hopes to emblem of failure and repression was slow and complicated. It began with a coup stretched over decades of dictatorship and democracy, through the rule of 14 presidents and several cycles of oil boom and bust. Someone looking for bad omens might have found one in the name of the hill where it's built. Roca Tarpeia, the Tarpeian rock, was an execution ground in ancient Rome. Oh, there you go. Well, that's an interesting connection. But after the project was unveiled in 1955, the first years of planning and construction were ones of steady progress and optimism. El Helicoide, it was so internationally celebrated that it was praised by Neruda and Dali, reportedly offered to help decorate the interior, but a 1958 coup that ousted the dictator Marcos Perez from power swept away dreams for the mall along with much else. Yes, they're pretty good at coups in South America. It's one thing they've got down pat. Pretty rank stuff. It's a bit of a horror story, and it does actually mirror the demise of Venezuela. I saw a recent documentary by a Kiwi guy called, I think he's called Indigo Traveller, and he went there for a few weeks actually, and checked out a bit of the countryside as well. It's actually quite a beautiful city. It's surrounded by hills, and potentially Caracas could be, well, it was at one stage, it was the jewel in the crown, probably of South America, but now everything's in rack and ruin. They've still got a subway system, but they can't operate the actual gates, so people travel free of charge, and of course the trains run intermittently at best. I saw the similar thing in Colombo, Sri Lanka, when I was there. They had old Chinese rolling stock, and you actually literally, during peak hour, you had to hang from the side of the carriages. There was no space inside. They didn't travel particularly fast, these trains, and they were very, very infrequent. So, yeah, quite an experience going to a third world type country. And I guess the same would apply with Venezuela. It'd be a fascinating place to see, but I wouldn't want to go there at this stage. I certainly wouldn't want to give a cent to Maduro's corrupt government. But I do hope that the people of South America do get through all this, because they're living in hell right now, and it just shows you what extreme socialism, socialistic dictatorship can do to a country. Absolutely smash it and ruin it. And all the experts who extracted the oil have basically were substituted by Maduro's own lackeys who didn't know what they were doing. So of course oil production's tanked, pardon the pun, and really the country is in penury. You can't even, cash is worth nothing. People have to use credit cards and things to get by, or bartering, I guess. It's a real problem there, and it's, like I say, it's a beautiful country. They've got beautiful women. It should be a paradise on earth, but unfortunately, it's just squalor and economic destruction. So when we should count our blessings living in Australia for all our problems with the COVID garbage and everything, all the shutdowns and unnecessary shutdowns, I should call them now. I'm backed up by the World Health Organization, so which I was bagging in the past, but they've actually seen the light. What can you do? It's a bit of a shock to the system. Anyway, look, I'll make this the end of the video. I do have a penchant to ramble on, and I'll try not to do that this time. So again, please thumbs up, thumbs down if you enjoyed the video. Please comment, tell me how things are going. It's always nice to hear from people that are loyally watching the channel. I've got quite a few loyal viewers now, and really appreciate that. And of course, please, if anybody feels inclined to subscribe, I could really do with a bit of a boost in that area, but not holding my breath. If I did, I'd be expired by now, because it's slow moving at the moment. But that's okay. I can live with it. It's not like I need to get that magic 1,000 up, but it's looking a long way off. That peak is way ahead. I don't know if I'll ever make it. Doesn't matter. But yeah, I have a great day. Like a superb weather here today. I think it's probably about 28 again, and a bit windy and sunny. It's pretty well the standard line I use for all these videos, but it's true. It's very stable weather for a Melbourne boy who's used to 4 seasons in one day. Anyway, have a great weekend, and hopefully I'll be back tomorrow.